Mario 64 was the pioneer of open 3D games. Released back in 1996, this game completely broke the mold set by other video games of its time, and ended up shaping the gaming landscape for years to come. Today I'd like to examine why exactly this game is so influential, and how even 26 years later it's still regarded as one of the great gaming classics. But with all that said, let's get into it, shall we? To drive home a point of just how much of an impact this game left, I first need to describe the gaming landscape prior to this thing's release. About the year before the game came out in 1995, imagery in video games was formed using pixels, microscopic square tiles that were each their own different color on a massive grid, so that when viewed on a grand scale they would all come together to form a larger image. This picture of Mario would be a good example. However, these squares lacked depth and were completely flat, forcing games up to that point, like this one, Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, the predecessor to Mario 64, to consist of exclusively linear, two-dimensional gameplay. And while there were a few bold souls dabbling in 3D at the time, only 2 three-dimensional games were released commercially by then, one in 1980 called Battlezone, the game I'm showing here, and another in 1981 called 3D Monster Maze, widely considered to be the first genuine horror game as well. Clearly amazing quality games. All in all, the rudimentary technologies of the time made for a slew of limitations in the gaming scene. That is, until Mario 64 came along and changed everything. I want you to imagine spending years getting used to this, and then suddenly seeing this. It'd be completely world-changing. But that's exactly what happened when the game first dropped. You see, this was the first mainstream game to generate imagery using polygons instead of pixels. These triangular shapes, dubbed polys, could be placed in a screen at all manner of different sizes and angles, so that when coming together, they could form an image with depth in 3 dimensions. This allowed players to traverse wide-open landscapes using 360 degrees of dynamic movement, all while witnessing the events of their game unfold as they never had before. Nintendo must have known this would be groundbreaking, considering the entire opening screen of this game is based around flaunting this new technology. But even they likely couldn't predict just how much of an impact this game would leave. Immediately after it came out, the game blew up and put polygon technology on the map. This breakthrough was so incredibly revolutionary that just months after the game came out, others using this technology released. Most notably Lara Croft Tomb Raider and Resident Evil. Although these only marked the beginning of what would become a massive insurgence of dynamic 3D video games. However, it is worth mentioning that in the early years of this technology, models were made using only a few large polygons, causing them to appear geometric, rigid, and simple. But along the way, people found that by increasing the poly concentration of a model, they could make it look smoother and more detailed. For example, the original Lara Croft model and what I'm showing here, made in 1996, consisted of only around 230 polys. Although Kratos' model for God of War, released in 2018, has around 80,000 polys, 32,000 for the face alone. And according to a study conducted in 2019, over 84% of games released nowadays are 3D. All thanks to Mario 64. Speaking of which, whatever happened to that game after it released? Well, I'll go over that in our final segment here. Fast forward to today, and the game has sold over 11 million units and continues to be regarded as a great masterpiece of gaming. But that's not just based on old memories. To this day, the game still has an active, dedicated community that do playthroughs, streams, and speedruns of it on a regular basis, with the game even getting a port to the current generation of Nintendo console, the Switch. allowing it to be exposed to a whole new audience. Mario 64 is one of the most influential games of recent memory and continues to leave an impression almost 3 decades after it came out. And that's about it. See you guys in the next one.